My dear friends, I want you to clear your mind of all preconceptions. Forget everything you think you know about how the world works, about cause and effect, about struggle and achievement. For the next hour or so, I invite you to open yourself to a new understanding, a new way of being in the world that is as effortless as it is powerful. The world you see around you, the circumstances of your life, the very fabric of your reality, all of this is nothing more than an outward projection of your inner state of consciousness. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your assumptions about yourself and the world, these are the true creators of your experience. Now, many of you may have heard this before. You may even intellectually accept it as true. But tonight I want you to go beyond mere intellectual understanding. I want you to feel this truth in the very marrow of your bones. For it is only when you truly internalize this principle that you can begin to grasp the immense power that lies dormant within you. Consider for a moment the natural world around us. Does a seed struggle to become a tree? Does it strain and push against the soil, forcing itself to grow? Of course not. The seed simply is, and in being it becomes. It contains within itself the perfect pattern of its full expression. And given the right conditions, it naturally and effortlessly grows into that expression. You, my dear friends, are no different. You too contain within you the seed of your desires, the perfect pattern of your ideal life. And just like the seed, you do not need to force your desires into being. You need only to provide the right conditions for their natural unfoldment. But what are these conditions, you may ask? They are nothing more, nothing less than your state of consciousness, your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs. These are the soil in which the seeds of your desires take root and grow. Now, let us delve deeper into what it means to force things in your life. When you force, you're operating from a place of lack, of desperation. You're saying to the universe, I do not have what I want and I must struggle and strive to get it. But in doing so, you are affirming the very lack you seek to overcome. Think about it. If you truly believe that you already possess what you desire, would you need to force it? Of course not. You would simply relax into the knowing that it is already yours. This, my friends, is the great secret, the feeling of the wish fulfilled, the absolute conviction that what you desire is already yours. This is the key that unlocks the door to your desires. But how, you may wonder, can we cultivate this feeling of the wish fulfilled? How can we convince ourselves of something that does not yet appear to be true in our outer world? The answer lies in the power of your imagination. Your imagination, dear ones, is not some frivolous faculty for daydreaming. It is the very workshop in which your reality is forged. What you imagine with feeling, with conviction, becomes the blueprint that your outer world must inevitably conform to. Though instead of forcing, instead of struggling and striving, I urge you to use your imagination. Create a scene in your mind that implies the fulfillment of your desire. Make it as vivid and as real as you possibly can. Engage all your senses. Feel the joy, the satisfaction, the gratitude that would be yours if your desire were already fulfilled. This is the crucial part. You must persist in this imaginal act. You must return to it again and again, not with effort or strain, but with the calm assurance that what you're imagining is, in fact, your reality. Now, some of you may be thinking, but Wayne, surely we must take action in the world to achieve our goals. And to this I say, yes, action is indeed necessary. But it is inspired action, effortless action, action that flows naturally from your changed state of consciousness. When you have truly assumed the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you will find that the right actions present themselves to you. Opportunities will appear as if by magic. The people and circumstances necessary for the realization of your desire will be drawn to you by an invisible force. This, my friends, is the law in operation. It is not something external to you, not some capricious force that must be appeased or manipulated. It is simply the way consciousness expresses itself in the world. Let me give you an example to illustrate this principle. Imagine a young man who desires to be wealthy. If he operates from a consciousness of lack, he might force himself to work long hours, to scrimp and save every penny to pursue get-rich quick schemes. He might even achieve a measure of financial success through these methods. But at what cost? His life becomes a constant struggle, a never-ending battle against scarcity. But suppose this same young man were to change his consciousness. Suppose he were to assume the feeling of being wealthy. He would imagine himself living in abundance, enjoying financial freedom, sharing his wealth generously. He would persist in this assumption until it became a conviction, a knowing. What would happen then? He might be inspired to start a business that aligns perfectly with his talents and passions. He might encounter a mentor who guides him to lucrative opportunities. He might even receive an unexpected inheritance or windfall. The specifics don't matter. What matters is that his outer world would inevitably conform to his inner conviction of wealth. All of this would unfold naturally, effortlessly. There would be no need for force, no need for struggle. The young man would simply follow the path that naturally opens up before him, guided by his inner knowing of abundance. This, my dear friends, is what I mean when I say don't force anything. It's not about passivity or inaction. It's about aligning yourself with the natural flow of life, with the law that governs all things. Now, I can hear some of you thinking, but Wayne, what about the challenges and obstacles we face in life? Surely we must overcome these through effort and struggle. You call challenges and obstacles are nothing more than the outpicturing of your own limiting beliefs and assumptions. When you force against these apparent obstacles, you are in fact reinforcing the very consciousness that created them. You are saying to the universe, yes, this is real, this is solid, this is something I must fight against. And in doing so, you give it even more power over you. But what if, instead of forcing against these obstacles, you were to simply assume that they do not exist? What if you were to live from the assumption that the path to your desire is clear and open? You would find, much to your amazement, that the obstacles dissolve of their own accord, or that solutions present themselves with ease and grace. Remember, my friends, the outer world is nothing more than a shadow, a reflection of your inner state. Change the inner, and the outer must follow. Now, let's consider another aspect of this principle of not forcing. Many of you, in your quest for spiritual growth and understanding, may have encountered teachings that emphasize discipline, effort, and control. You may have been told that you must force yourself to think positive thoughts, that you must struggle against negative emotions, that you must exert iron control over your mind. But I say to you, this too is a form of forcing, and it is ultimately counterproductive. For in attempting to control your thoughts and emotions through sheer willpower, you are implicitly affirming their power over you. You are saying these thoughts, these emotions are real and powerful. Instead, I urge you to simply observe your thoughts and emotions without judgment, without resistance. See them for what they are, temporary states of consciousness that have no power other than that which you give them. And then, gently but firmly, turn your attention to the state you wish to embody. This is not forcing but allowing. It is not struggle but surrender to your true self, to the God within you that is the source of all creation. Let me share with you a personal experience that illustrates this principle. Many years ago, when I first began to explore these truths, I found myself in dire financial straits. Bills were piling up, creditors were calling, and I could see no way out of my predicament. My first instinct was to force a solution. I worked longer hours, I scrimped and saved, I worried and fretted, but the more I forced, the worse my situation became. It was as if the universe was conspiring against me, closing every door I tried to push open. Then, in a moment of quiet desperation, I remembered the truth I had been studying. I realized that my outer circumstances were merely a reflection of my inner state of lack and limitation. And in that moment, I made a decision to change instead of focusing on my apparent lack, I began to imagine myself as financially secure. I created a scene in my imagination where I was paying my bills with ease, where money flowed to me abundantly, where I lived in a state of joyful prosperity. At first, it felt like pretending, but I persisted. Night after night, I would fall asleep in this imaginal scene. I would carry the feeling of financial abundance with me throughout my day. I refused to be moved by the apparent facts of my outer world. And then, my friends, the miracle occurred. Within a matter of weeks, my financial situation began to change. A business opportunity presented itself that I would never have noticed in my previous state of consciousness. Money began to flow from unexpected sources. Before I knew it, all my debts were paid, and I was living in the very state of prosperity I had imagined. None of this required force or struggle on my part. Once I had changed my inner state, the outer circumstances of my life rearranged themselves naturally, effortlessly to match that state. All I had to do was to follow the promptings of my intuition, to take the inspired actions that naturally arose from my new state of consciousness. This, my dear friends, is the power that lies within each and every one of you. You do not need to force your good into being. You need only to assume the feeling of already being, doing, or having that which you desire. The rest will follow as naturally as day follows night. Now, I can sense that some of you may be struggling with this concept. You may be thinking, but Wayne, I've tried to imagine my desires as fulfilled and nothing has changed. Am I doing something wrong? Be patient with yourself. Remember, you are undoing a lifetime of habitual thinking and feeling. You are challenging deeply ingrained beliefs about the nature of reality itself. This is no small task, and it may take time and persistence, but do not mistake persistence for force. Persistence is simply the consistent application of a principle. It is returning again and again to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, not with strain or effort, but with calm assurance. Think of it this way. When you plant a seed in the ground, you dig it up every day to see if it's growing. Of course not. You trust in the natural process of growth. You provide the right conditions, water, sunlight, fertile soil, and then you allow the seed to do what it naturally does. Your desires are like seeds planted in the fertile soil of your consciousness. Provide the right conditions, the feeling of fulfillment, the assumption of already being what you wish to be, and then allow the natural process of manifestation to unfold. This allowing, this trust in the law, is the very opposite of forcing. It is a state of relaxed awareness, of knowing that what is yours must inevitably come to you. Now let us address another common misconception. Some of you may be thinking, but Wayne, if I don't force things, if I don't strive and struggle, won't I become lazy and unproductive? My dear friends, nothing could be further from the truth. When you align yourself with the law, when you live from the state of the wish fulfilled, you will find yourself more energized, more inspired, more productive than ever before, but it will be a different kind of productivity. It will not be the frantic activity of someone driven by fear and lack. It will be the joyful, purposeful activity of someone who knows their own power, who trusts in the perfect unfoldment of their good. You see, when you force, you are operating from your limited egoic self. You are trying to make things happen through sheer willpower. But when you allow, when you trust in the law, you are aligning yourself with the infinite power of your true self, of the God within you. And this power, my friends, is limitless. It knows no bounds. It can accomplish in a moment what might take years of forced effort, but it operates according to spiritual principles, not material ones. It responds not to your actions, but to your state of consciousness. So, I urge you, let go of the need to force. Let go of the belief that struggle and strain are necessary for achievement. Instead, cultivate the art of allowing. Learn to live in the state of the wish fulfilled, no matter what your outer circumstances may be telling you. This is not always easy, I know. The world around you may seem to contradict your inner, knowing at every turn. But remember, the outer world is only a shadow. It is your inner world that is the reality, the causative force. Stand firm in your assumption. No matter what the evidence of your senses may tell you, no matter what others may say, hold fast to the truth of your imaginal act, for it is this, and this alone, that has the power to reshape your world. Now, let me address a question that often arises when I speak of these principles. Some of you may be wondering, but Wayne, what about the suffering in the world? What about injustice and inequality? Surely we must take action to change these things. We must take action. But it must be inspired action. Action that springs from a changed consciousness. For if we act from the same consciousness that created these conditions, we will only perpetuate them, no matter how noble our intentions. If you wish to change the world, my friends, you must first change yourself. You must first embody the change you wish to see. For the outer world is nothing more than a reflection of the inner states of the collective consciousness. Imagine a world where every individual understood and applied these principles. Imagine a world where each person lived from the state of their wish fulfilled, where no one felt the need to force or struggle or compete. Can you see how radically different such a world would be? This, my dear friends, is the great work to which we are all called. It is not a work of outer reform, but of inner transformation. It is not a work of force, but of allowing the divine pattern within each of us to unfold naturally and perfectly. And make no mistake, this work begins with you, right here, right now. In this very moment, you have the power to change your world by changing your consciousness. You have the power to let go of force and embrace the art of allowing. So I challenge you, my friends, for the next week, commit to living from the state of your wish fulfilled. Choose one desire, one change you wish to see in your life. Create a scene that implies the fulfillment of this desire. Make it as vivid and as real as you can. Then, every night before you sleep, enter into this scene. Feel it, live it. Make it so real that when you open your eyes, you're almost surprised to find yourself back in your present circumstances. But don't stop there. Carry the feeling of fulfillment with you throughout your day. No matter what your outer world shows you, hold fast to your inner knowing. Don't force, don't struggle, simply allow. And watch, my friends, watch how your world begins to change. Watch how doors open that you never knew existed. Watch how the very circumstances of your life rearrange themselves to match your new state of consciousness. This is the law in action. This is the power that has been given to you, that lies dormant within you, waiting to be awakened. Remember, you are not some helpless victim of circumstance. You are not at the mercy of external forces. You are the operating power in your world. You are the God of your universe, creating your reality with every thought, every feeling, every assumption. So choose wisely, my friends. Choose to live from the end. Choose to embody the state of your wish fulfilled. Choose to trust in the law to allow your good to flow to you naturally and effortlessly. For in this choice lies your freedom. In this choice lies your power. In this choice lies the key to creating the life you truly desire. And as we come to the close of our talk this evening, I want to leave you with one final thought. The principle we've discussed, don't force anything, is not just a technique for manifesting your desires. It is a way of life, a state of being that aligns you with the very rhythm of the universe. When you cease to force, when you learn to allow, you open yourself to the infinite intelligence that pervades all things. You become a channel through which the divine can express itself in the world. And in this state of allowance, of surrender to your highest self, you will find a peace and a joy that no outer circumstance can shake. You will move through life with grace and ease, knowing that all is well, that all is unfolding perfectly according to the divine pattern within you. So go forth, my dear friends, and apply what you have learned. Let go of force, embrace the art of allowing, and watch as miracles unfold in your life. For you are the miracle, you are the power, you are the divine made manifest. Thank you, and may God bless you all.
The one thing you must stop doing, the very thing that pushes success away from you, is living in the consciousness of lack. Now, let me tell you what I mean by this, for it is of paramount importance. Every moment of your day, you are either living in the consciousness of lack or the consciousness of abundance. There is no middle ground, no neutral state of being. When you declare, I want success, you are actually affirming its absence. When you say, I need more money, you are dwelling in the consciousness of not having enough. When you proclaim, I wish I was successful, you are living in a state of wanting rather than having. Do you see the subtle yet crucial difference? Let me share with you a principle that I have tested and proven countless times. The outside world is nothing more than the objectification of your inner assumptions. Whatever you are experiencing now, be it lack or abundance, is the direct result of your accepted beliefs about yourself and the world. Tonight, I will show you how to move from the consciousness of lack to the consciousness of fulfillment, from the state of wanting to the state of having, from the condition of seeking to the condition of being. Consider this when you say, I want success. You are placing success outside of yourself, making it something to be attained rather than something to be expressed. This is the fundamental error that keeps pushing success away from you. Success is not something to be pursued. It is a consciousness to be assumed. Let me tell you a story from my own experience. Many years ago, I knew a man who constantly spoke about wanting to be successful. He would say, when I become successful, I will, and then list all the things he would do. Year after year, success eluded him. Why? Because he was living in the consciousness of wanting success rather than being successful. Then one day, he heard what I'm telling you now. He realized that as long as he lived in the consciousness of wanting success, he would continue to experience the want of success. That very night, he made a fundamental shift in his consciousness. Instead of saying, I want success, he began to live from the consciousness of being successful. He would fall asleep each night feeling the naturalness of being successful. He would walk through his day experiencing the feeling of being successful. He made this his new normal state of consciousness. Now pay careful attention to what I'm about to tell you, for this is the crux of the matter. Success is not a future event, it is a present state of consciousness. The feeling of being successful now is the secret of experiencing success in what you call the future. When you live in the consciousness of lack, saying things like, I need more money, I want better relationships, I wish I had more opportunities, you are actually reinforcing the very state that keeps these things from you. You are dwelling in the consciousness of absence, and the law of consciousness dictates that what you assume you must express. Let me show you how to make this fundamental shift in consciousness. First, you must understand that your imagination is not a tool for daydreaming about what you want. It is the very substance of reality itself. When I speak of imagination, I am speaking of your consciousness, your I am-ness. The Bible tells us, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. This is not mere poetry, it is a practical instruction in the art of consciousness transformation. When you continue to live in the consciousness of lack, you are using your imagination, your creative power, to perpetuate the very condition you wish to change. Consider this profound truth. Everything in your world is pushing against you with the force of your own assumption. If you assume lack, the whole world will prove you right. If you assume abundance, the same world will reorganize itself to prove that assumption. Now, let me give you a practical technique to stop living in the consciousness of lack. Tonight, when you go to bed, instead of reviewing your day of wanting and seeking success, you will enter into a new state of consciousness. You will feel as though you are already successful. But remember, this is not mere positive thinking or affirmation. This is a complete assumption of the state of consciousness of being successful. Feel its naturalness. Feel how it would feel to be the person you desire to be. Feel the satisfaction, the contentment, the gratitude that would be yours if you were already expressing success. Many of you are thinking, but Wayne, how can I feel successful when my current reality shows me the opposite? This is where most people remain trapped in the consciousness of lack. They allow their current circumstances to dictate their inner state. Let me tell you something remarkable. Your present circumstances are nothing more than the harvest of your previous assumptions. They have no power to determine your future unless you give them that power by accepting them as final. Think about this. Every great achievement in human history began with someone who dared to assume a state that their senses denied. Every invention, every discovery, every advancement started in the imagination of someone who refused to accept current circumstances as final. The one thing you must stop doing is allowing your present facts to determine your inner conversations. Your inner conversations are your actual state of consciousness. When you say, "I can't afford it, it's too difficult, I'm not qualified enough," you are having inner conversations that perpetuate the state of lack. Instead, you must begin new inner conversations based on the assumption of already being what you desire to be. When you walk, you must walk with the feeling of being successful. When you talk, you must talk from the consciousness of being successful. When you work, you must work from the state of being successful. Let me share with you a profound secret. The feeling of the wish fulfilled is the secret of creation. Whatever you are feeling is true about yourself right now is creating your future experiences. If you are feeling the frustration of wanting success, you are creating more experiences of wanting success. Now, let us delve deeper into the practical application of this principle. When I tell you to live in the consciousness of success rather than the consciousness of lack, I am not suggesting mere mental gymnastics. I am revealing to you the very foundation of creation itself. Consider this. Every night before you sleep, your consciousness is in a state of high receptivity. This is the time when the seed of your assumption will take root most deeply. Instead of falling asleep, feeling the frustration of what you do not have, fall asleep in the consciousness of already having what you desire. Let me give you a specific technique. As you lay in your bed, try to close your eyes and ask yourself this question: how would I feel if I were not expressing the success I desire? Then let that feeling envelop you completely. Feel the satisfaction, the contentment, the absolute knowing that success is not something you are seeking, but something you are expressing right now. Remember, the subconscious mind accepts as true whatever you feel to be true. It does not argue, it does not question, it simply accepts and then proceeds to express that acceptance in your outer world. This is why feeling is the secret. Many of you have been told that you must work hard, struggle, and sacrifice to achieve success. But I tell you, these are the very assumptions that keep you bound to the consciousness of lack. Success is not achieved through effort, it is expressed through assumption. Think about this: when you assume the feeling of success, you are actually moving into a different state of consciousness. In this new state, opportunities that were always there but invisible to your previous state of consciousness suddenly become visible and available to you. Let me share with you a principle that few understand. The whole vast world is yourself pushed out. Everything you perceive is an expression of your own consciousness. Therefore, when you live in the consciousness of lack, the whole world conspires to show you lack. When you live in the consciousness of success, the same world reorganizes itself to show you success. Now, some of you might be thinking, but Wayne, what about action? Don't we need to do something? Yes, but your actions must spring from the consciousness of already being successful, not from the consciousness of trying to become successful. Do you see the difference? When you act from the consciousness of lack, your actions are tinged with anxiety, doubt, and the energy of seeking. But when you act from the consciousness of already being successful, your actions flow naturally, effortlessly, inspired by the very state you have assumed. Consider this: success is not a destination. It is a state of consciousness. Just as you can move from one room to another in your physical home, you can move from one state of consciousness to another in your spiritual home. The move is accomplished not by physical effort, but by assumption. Let me tell you something profound. The state of consciousness of already being successful knows exactly what to do. It knows precisely what actions to take. It attracts the right circumstances, the right people, the right opportunities. But you must first occupy that state. Let us now address what many find most challenging, maintaining this new state of consciousness when your external world has not yet caught up with your inner assumption. This is where most people falter, where they allow the evidence of their senses to pull them back into the consciousness of lack. Remember this eternal truth. The outer world must conform to your inner assumptions, but it does so in its own time and in what often appears to be a natural way. While you're waiting for the outer manifestation, you must maintain the consciousness of already being what you desire to be. Let me share with you what I mean by persistence in assumption. When you wake each morning, your first thoughts often determine the tone of your entire day. Instead of waking to thoughts of what you lack or what you need to achieve, wake to the consciousness of already being successful. Feel it as naturally as you feel the pillow beneath your head. Many of you ask, but Wayne, what about when things go wrong? What about when circumstances seem to contradict my assumption? Listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you, for this is crucial. Circumstances have no power to alter your state of consciousness unless you give them that power. When circumstances seem to deny your assumption, that is the time to intensify your feeling of already being what you desire to be. Remember, the outer world is only reflecting your past assumptions. Your present assumption, if persisted in, will become your future fact. Consider this every moment of your day. You are either strengthening your new state of consciousness or falling back into the old state of lack. Your inner conversations, your reactions to events, your feelings about yourself, these are either confirming your new state or contradicting it. Let me give you a specific example. When you receive a bill in the mail, do you immediately fall into the consciousness of lack, thinking, how will I pay this? Or do you maintain the consciousness of abundance, knowing that as a successful person, all your needs are met with ease? Your reaction in such moments reveals your true state of consciousness. This is why I tell you, the one thing you must stop doing is allowing external circumstances to determine your internal state. Your internal state must be maintained regardless of external evidence. This is the art of living from the end. Think about this: success is not something that happens to you. It is something that happens from you. It is the outer expression of an inner conviction. When you truly live in the consciousness of being successful, success becomes as natural as breathing. Many of you have been taught to set goals, to make plans, to take action. But I tell you, before all of these, you must first establish the consciousness of already being what you desire to be. For your goals, plans, and actions will then spring from this new state of consciousness, carrying with them the power of fulfillment. Let me share with you a profound secret about manifestation. The world is not responding to your wants, your needs, or your wishes. It is responding to your state of consciousness. When you live in the consciousness of lack, saying I want success, you are actually manifesting more wanting, not more success. Now let us discuss what I consider to be the most vital aspect of this teaching, the role of faith in maintaining your new state of consciousness. But when I speak of faith, I do not mean belief or hoping for the best. I speak of faith as the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not yet seen in the external world. Consider this profound truth: faith is nothing more than loyalty to your unseen assumption. When you assume the consciousness of being successful and persist in that assumption despite all external evidence to the contrary, you are exercising true faith. Let me tell you something that few understand about the nature of faith. Faith is not believing that something will happen in the future. Faith is knowing that what you desire is already yours in consciousness, and therefore must manifest in your experience. This is why I tell you that imagination creates reality. Many of you struggle with maintaining your assumption because you're constantly looking for evidence in the external world. But I tell you, the evidence appears after the assumption, never before. Your task is to remain faithful to your assumption until it hardens into fact. Think about this. Every time you say, I'll believe it when I see it, you are living in direct opposition to the law of consciousness. The correct attitude is, I'll see it because I believe it. This is the true meaning of faith. When you wake in the morning and your external world shows no sign of your assumed success, that is the moment to intensify your faith. Instead of allowing the external to shake your conviction, let every contradiction strengthen your resolve to maintain your new state of consciousness. Let me share with you a practical technique for maintaining your faith. Throughout your day, whenever you notice yourself slipping back into the consciousness of lack, stop and ask yourself this question. How would I be thinking and feeling right now if I were already expressing the success I desire? This simple question will bring you back to your desired state of consciousness. But remember, this is not about pretending or deceiving yourself. It is about assuming the natural feeling of already being what you desire to be. Consider how a truly successful person thinks and feels. They don't wake up wondering if success will come to them. They don't go through their day seeking success. They live, move, and have their being in the consciousness of success. This must become your new normal. Many of you have created habits of thought and feeling that perpetuate the consciousness of lack. Every time you say, I can't afford it, it's too difficult, I'm not ready, you are strengthening these habits. These must be replaced with new habits that spring from your assumed state of success. Let me tell you something profound about habits of consciousness. They can be changed in an instant by assumption. The moment you assume a new state of consciousness, you have changed. The persistence of that change depends entirely on your loyalty to the new state. Let us now explore what happens in the interval between your assumption and its manifestation in the physical world. This interval is where most people falter, where they allow doubt to creep in and return to the old state of consciousness. Remember this, the interval is not a period of waiting, it is a period of gestation. Just as the seed planted in the ground requires time to grow into a visible plant, your assumption requires time to grow into a visible manifestation. But the seed does not doubt, it simply grows according to law. Many of you ask, how long must I maintain this new consciousness before I see results? This is the voice of doubt, the voice that would pull you back into the consciousness of lack. Time is not a factor in the operation of consciousness. The only factor is the intensity and persistence of your assumption. Consider this, every moment you spend wondering when your desire will manifest is a moment spent in the consciousness of not having it. Every moment you spend checking to see if it's working is a moment of doubt. These moments of doubt are like continually digging up a seed to see if it's growing. Let me share with you the secret of perfect faith. Live as though your assumption is already fact. When you truly assume the consciousness of being successful, you no longer worry about when or how it will manifest. You simply live from that state, knowing that what you have assumed in consciousness must objectify itself in your world. Think about this, the outer world is nothing more than a delayed reflection of your inner assumptions. What you are experiencing now is the result of past assumptions. What you will experience tomorrow is being determined by your consciousness today. Many of you struggle with what appears to be failure or setback. But I tell you, there is no such thing as failure when you understand the law of consciousness. What appears as failure is simply the passing away of an old state of consciousness. It is making way for the new state you have assumed. Let me tell you something profound about the nature of success. It is not a series of achievements or acquisitions. It is a state of consciousness that, once truly assumed, expresses itself in countless ways in your external world. When you live in the consciousness of success, success becomes your natural experience. Consider how different your life would be if you never again lived in the consciousness of lack. If you never again said, I can't, I need, I want. If you lived completely and consistently in the consciousness of already being what you desire to be. This is the challenge I leave with you tonight. Stop doing the one thing that pushes success away. Stop living in the consciousness of lack. Begin now to live in the consciousness of fulfillment. Let every thought, every feeling, every inner conversation spring from the assumption that you are already what you desire to be. Remember this eternal truth. The world is yourself pushed out. Change your concept of self and you change your world. There is no other way. All things exist in consciousness, and it is from consciousness that all things appear. Your task is simple, though it may not be easy. Assume the consciousness of being successful now. Not tomorrow, not when circumstances change, but now. For now is the only time there is, and now is when your assumptions are creating your future. I leave you with this final thought. Success is not something you pursue. It is something you express from a state of consciousness. The consciousness of lack perpetuates lack. The consciousness of success perpetuates success. Choose this day which consciousness you will live from. For in the end, there is only one cause behind all effects, one source of all manifestation, consciousness. You are that consciousness individualized as you. The power is within you. The choice is yours. The time is this now. The time is this law. Prove it to yourself. For in the testing lies your freedom, and in the proving lies your transformation. Go now and live in the assumption that you are already that which you desire to be, and watch as your world transforms to reflect your new state of consciousness. The one thing you must stop doing is waiting to be successful, for success is not a future state to be achieved. It is a present state to be assumed. Assume it now. Live from it now. Be it now. For what you assume, you become. And now, knowing this truth, knowing that the power is within you, knowing that your consciousness creates your reality, go forth and be what you desire to be. For in this knowing lies your freedom, and in this freedom lies your power. Test it, prove it, live it, for this is the law and this is the way. Good night.
My dear wonderful friends, tonight I shall share with you the most powerful secret in all of creation. How to speak to yourself in a way that will completely transform your world in just 3 days. Not in 3 months, not in 3 years, but in 3 days. For you see, the power of your inner conversation is absolute, and it is the only true creative power in the universe. Now, when I tell you to talk to yourself, I am not speaking of the idle chatter that most engage in throughout their day. I speak of that inner conversation that is deliberate, conscious, and aligned with your desired state. For your inner conversation is your consciousness externalized, and your consciousness is God. Consider the words of Scripture, "In the beginning was the Word." These words are not speaking of some external deity's utterance. They speak of your inner word, your inner conversation. For you are the operant power, and your inner conversation is the word that creates all things. Many of you come to me asking, "Wayne, how long must I wait to see my desires manifest?" And I tell you now, give yourself 3 days of proper inner conversation, and you will see your world begin to transform. For 3 is the number of completion in Scripture, and when you maintain the proper inner conversation for 3 days, you set in motion forces beyond your current understanding. Let me share with you exactly how to conduct this inner conversation. First, you must understand that your inner conversation must be from the end. You do not speak of what you want to be true. You speak as though what you desire is already true. This is the great secret that most of the world has missed. When you wake in the morning of your first day, your inner conversation must be from the state of your wish fulfilled. If you desire wealth, your inner conversation must be that of a wealthy person. If you desire health, your inner conversation must be that of a healthy person. If you desire love, your inner conversation must be that of someone who is deeply loved. But then this is crucial. Your inner conversation must feel natural. It must not be strained or forced, for feeling is the secret, and your inner conversation must be accompanied by the feeling of naturalness. Let me give you a perfect example from Scripture. When David spoke to Goliath, his inner conversation was not, "I hope I can win," or "I will try my best." His inner conversation was from the state of victory already achieved. This is why he could say with complete conviction, "This day will the Lord deliver thee into mine hand." Now for these 3 days you must guard your inner conversation as though your life depends upon it, because it does. Every time you catch yourself engaging in inner conversation that contradicts your desired state, you must immediately revise it. This is not a suggestion. This is a command if you wish to see your world transform. Consider this: every outer conversation you have is first an inner conversation. Every relationship you have is first an inner conversation. Every circumstance in your life is first an inner conversation. Therefore, by changing your inner conversation for just 3 days, you literally change the entire substance from which your world is created. Let me tell you how to structure your inner conversation throughout these 3 days. In the morning, your first inner words must be from the state of your wish, fulfilled before you open your eyes, before you move a muscle. Engage in the inner conversation of the person you wish to be. If you desire wealth, your inner conversation might be, I am so grateful for my abundant life. Money flows to me easily and continuously. I am surrounded by prosperity, but remember, these words must not be mere affirmations. They must be spoken with the feeling of knowing that they are already true. Throughout your day, your inner conversation must maintain the same level of conviction. When challenges arise, and they will arise, your inner conversation must remain steadfast. If someone speaks of lack, your inner conversation must be of abundance. If someone speaks of illness, your inner conversation must be of health. This is where most fail in their attempt to change their world. They allow their inner conversation to be pulled into the current circumstances rather than maintaining the conversation of their desired state. But I tell you now, circumstances have no power over your inner conversation unless you give them that power. For these 3 days, you must be relentless in maintaining your new inner conversation. When you walk down the street, your inner conversation must be from your desired state. When you eat your meals, your inner conversation must be from your desired state. When you prepare for sleep, your inner conversation must be from your desired state. Let me share with you a principle that I have tested and proven countless times. Your inner conversation is the only reality. Everything else, absolutely everything, is a shadow of your inner conversation pushed out. Therefore, when you maintain the proper inner conversation for 3 days, you literally create a new world. Many of you may be thinking, but Wayne, 3 days seems too short a time to change my entire world. Let me remind you of the story of Jonah. How long was he in the belly of the whale? 3 days. And after 3 days, he was transformed, and his world was transformed. This is not coincidence, my dear friends. This is law. 3 days of proper inner conversation is all that is required to set in motion the forces that will transform your world. But these must be 3 complete days, not 3 days of wavering between states. During these 3 days, you must guard your inner conversation, not just in your waking hours, but as you fall asleep. For the last inner conversation you have before sleep is particularly powerful. It continues to echo through your subconscious mind throughout your sleep. Therefore, as you prepare for sleep during these 3 days, your inner conversation must be perfectly aligned with your desired state. If you desire a successful business, your inner conversation might be, I am so grateful for my thriving business. My customers are delighted with our services. Profits increase continuously. But remember, and this is crucial, your inner conversation must be accompanied by the feeling of naturalness. It must feel as natural to have this conversation as it feels to speak of what you had for breakfast. This is where the power lies, not in the words themselves, but in the feeling of naturalness that accompanies them. Let me share with you another principle. Your inner conversation creates your outer conversations. Therefore, during these 3 days, you must be particularly vigilant about your outer conversations as well. They must align with your new inner conversation. If someone asks you how you are, your response must come from your desired state. If someone speaks to you about problems or difficulties, your response must come from your desired state. Your outer conversation must be a perfect reflection of your new inner conversation. Many of you may find this challenging at first. You may be tempted to engage in conversations about current circumstances rather than your desired state. But I tell you now, this is where your power lies, in maintaining your new conversation regardless of appearances. Consider the story of Jesus walking on water. What was his inner conversation? Was it about the impossibility of walking on water? Was it about the danger of the storms? No. His inner conversation was from the state of mastery over all natural laws and his outer world had to conform to this inner conversation. During these 3 days, you must maintain the same level of conviction in your inner conversation. You must speak to yourself as though your desired state is already your reality, not as though it will be, not as though it might be, but as though it is. Let me share with you how to handle doubts when they arise during these 3 days, and they will arise. When a doubt appears in your mind, do not fight it. Instead, immediately revise your inner conversation. If you catch yourself saying inwardly, "This isn't working," immediately revise it too. "Everything is working perfectly. My world is transforming now." This revision must be immediate and complete. You cannot allow doubt to linger in your inner conversation. For remember, your inner conversation is the only reality. Therefore, a doubting inner conversation will create a doubting outer reality. Throughout these 3 days, your inner conversation must be dominated by gratitude. Not gratitude for what you hope will come, but gratitude for what is already yours in your desired state. This gratitude must be part of your inner conversation throughout the day. When you wake in the morning, your inner conversation must be filled with gratitude. When you go about your daily activities, your inner conversation must be filled with gratitude. When you prepare for sleep, your inner conversation must be filled with gratitude. Let me share with you another principle. Your inner conversation creates your inner states, and your inner states create your outer world. Therefore, during these 3 days, your inner conversation must create and maintain the inner state of your wish fulfilled. If you desire wealth, your inner conversation must create and maintain the inner state of wealth consciousness. If you desire health, your inner conversation must create and maintain the inner state of health consciousness. If you desire love, your inner conversation must create and maintain the inner state of being loved. Many of you may be wondering what to do if you slip in your inner conversation during these 3 days. Let me be very clear, you must not condemn yourself. Instead, immediately revise the conversation. Remember, you are training yourself to maintain a new inner conversation, and like any training, it requires practice. During these 3 days, your inner conversation must be your primary focus. Every other activity must be secondary to maintaining your inner conversation. For you are literally recreating your world through this conversation. Let me share with you how to structure your inner conversation for specific desires. If you desire a new home, your inner conversation might be, "I love living in my beautiful new home. Everything about it is perfect for me." If you desire a promotion, your inner conversation might be, "I am so grateful for my new position. It's everything I desired and more." But remember, these are not mere words. They must be accompanied by the feeling of living in that new home, the feeling of working in that new position. Fulfilling is the secret, and your inner conversation must generate the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Throughout these 3 days, your inner conversation must be specific. Vague inner conversation creates vague results. Therefore, speak to yourself with clarity about your desired state. Be specific in your inner conversation about what you are grateful for, what you are experiencing, what you are enjoying in your desired state. Let me share with you another principle. Your inner conversation creates your self-concept, and your self-concept creates your world. Therefore, during these 3 days, your inner conversation must be about who you are, not just what you have. If you desire success, your inner conversation must be about being a successful person, not just about having success. If you desire abundance, your inner conversation must be about being an abundant person, not just about having money. If you desire love, your inner conversation must be about being a loved person, not just about having a relationship. During these 3 days, your inner conversation must be continuous. Not in the sense of constant chatter, but in the sense of consistent alignment with your desired state. Every time you become aware of your inner conversation, it must be from your desired state. Let me share with you how to maintain this continuity. Set reminders for yourself throughout the day. Every time you look at your watch, every time you eat a meal, every time you enter a room, let these be triggers to check your inner conversation. But remember, your inner conversation must not be mechanical. It must be aligned with feeling rich with the emotion of your desired state. For it is the feeling that gives power to your inner conversation. Throughout these 3 days, your inner conversation must be sovereign. You must not allow anyone or anything to dictate your inner conversation. Not circumstances, not other people's opinions, not past experiences. Nothing must have power over your inner conversation except you. Let me share with you another principle. Your inner conversation creates your expectations, and your expectations create your experience. Therefore, during these 3 days, your inner conversation must create the highest expectations of good for yourself. Many of you may be thinking, but Wayne, what if my desired state seems impossible? Let me remind you, nothing is impossible to your inner conversation. Your inner conversation is God in action, and to God all things are possible. During these 3 days, your inner conversation must be about possibility, not probability. You must speak to yourself from the state of your wish fulfilled. Regardless of how probable or improbable may seem to your rational mind. Let me share with you how to handle apparent failures during these 3 days. If something happens that seems to contradict your desired state, your inner conversation must remain unchanged. You must speak to yourself as though the seeming failure is actually part of the perfect unfolding of your desire. Remember, your inner conversation is creating your reality, not the other way around. Therefore, no external circumstance has the power to change your inner conversation unless you give it that power. Throughout these 3 days, your inner conversation must be your constant companion. It must be the lens through which you view every experience, the filter through which you interpret every event, the standard by which you measure every circumstance. Let me share with you another principle. Your inner conversation creates your belief system, and your belief system creates your reality. Therefore, during these 3 days, your inner conversation must consistently reinforce the beliefs that support your desired state. During these 3 days, your inner conversation must be a perfect reflection of the person you wish to be. You must speak to yourself as that person would speak. Think as that person would think. Feel as that person would feel. Let me share with you how to maintain this level of consciousness. When you catch yourself speaking from your old state, immediately ask yourself, how would I be speaking to myself if I were already the person I wish to be? Then revise your inner conversation accordingly. Throughout these 3 days, your inner conversation must be about what is not, what was, or what might be. You must speak to yourself in the present tense from the state of your wish fulfilled. This is crucial for the manifestation of your desire. Let me share with you another principle. Your inner conversation creates your future, but it does so by creating your present. Therefore, during these 3 days, your inner conversation must make your desired future your present reality. Many of you may be wondering what will happen after these 3 days. Let me tell you, if you have maintained the proper inner conversation for 3 days, you will have set in motion forces that must result in the manifestation of your desire. During these 3 days, your inner conversation must be your primary tool for creation. Every other method, every other technique, every other approach must be secondary to maintaining your new inner conversation. Let me share with you how to know if your inner conversation is correct. If it feels natural, if it feels real, if it feels true even in the face of contrary evidence, then your inner conversation is correct. Throughout these 3 days, your inner conversation must be protected like a precious jewel. You must guard against doubt, against fear, against negativity, for your inner conversation is the very substance from which your world is created. Let me share with you another principle. Your inner conversation creates your relationship with yourself, and your relationship with yourself creates all other relationships. Therefore, during these 3 days, your inner conversation must reflect the highest, most loving relationship with yourself. During these 3 days, your inner conversation must be your sacred practice. You must treat it with the same reverence that a priest treats his prayers, that a scientist treats his experiments, that an artist treats his creations. Let me share with you how to maintain this level of devotion. See your inner conversation as your direct connection to the creative power of the universe. For that is exactly what it is, your consciousness in action creating your world. Throughout these 3 days, your inner conversation must be your constant reminder of who you really are, the operant power in your world, the creator of reality, the God of your uniqueness. And that, my dear friends, is how you must talk to yourself for 3 days if you wish to transform your world. Not sometimes, not occasionally, but consistently, continuously, constantly. For your inner conversation is the Word of God in action, and it cannot return void. Remember this, your world is your inner conversation pushed out. Therefore, guard your inner conversation for these 3 days, as though your life depends upon it, because it does. So what will you do with this knowledge? Will you continue with your old inner conversation, creating the same results you've always created? Or will you begin today, this moment, to maintain a new inner conversation that must create a new world? The choice is yours, but the law is absolute. Your inner conversation creates your reality. Therefore, speak to yourself for 3 days as though your desires are already fulfilled, and watch your world transform. That's the message I want to leave you tonight. Not because it's easy, but because it's true. Not because it's simple, but because it's powerful. Not because it's what you expected to hear, but because it's what you needed to hear. Remember, 3 days of proper inner conversation will transform your world. Every single time. And isn't that worth thinking about?